What's my word? That's a thing people do, right? Ask God for a word for the year ahead.
It gives you a goal, a plan for your heart, a way to walk when the world crumbles around you.
Lord, this year I need a word to help me focus on the right things, the eternal things.
This is my year of waking up to what matters.
What has always mattered.
I need a word as I walk out of the ashes and into the sunlight.
A word of hope.
That one word that I'll feel deep in my heart.
I pray, Lord, you would give me a word. Your word. The living and active word.
The one that is sharper than any two-edged sword.
The word that lights my path.
My teacher.
My truth.
My shield.
Because of your word, God,
my word has promise and meaning.
The grass withers.
The flower fades.
But the word of God stands forever.
Forever.
Thank you, God.
That your word can be my word.
All year long. Amen.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the gathering. Welcome to the gathering. We're excited tonight. My wife and I, Carla, we have a great lesson for you. So I hope that you have your Bibles, your notes. You can get the notes again. We're going to talk about that in a second. But tonight we've got something great for you tonight, especially for those of you all who are parents. We're going to talk about being there for your children. Being there for your children. What does it mean to really be there for your children? You know, people throw that term around, parent, all the time. But tonight we're going to talk about parenting and what does the Bible say about parenting, and whether your children are little and you're still in that training stage, or they're adults and you're now moving from the parenting stage in which you're parenting them and raising them up to where they're adults. And now you're in the counseling mode. Tonight, we want to help parents raise children biblically. But before we do that, we need to do the three things that we do all the time. The first thing is we need to hit the share button. Now, we hit the share button not for numbers. That's not our major thing. We hit the share button because we want to help our friends, family, co-workers, everybody we know understand who they are and whose they are. Because when you understand who you are and whose you are, the purposes of God becomes clearer to you. And that means the reason why you're here, that question that everybody asks, begins to become clearer to you every day. But then the gift, talents, and potential that God gives us all then begins to line up to the calling of ministry that he's given us all. So please hit the share button. Don't be selfish. Let's help everybody with that. Now, the second thing we want you to do is we want you to download the Good Seed Ministries app. It is our new digital platform that we created actually during COVID for us to stay in contact with you, but also to help you grow spiritually. And to download the Good Seed Ministries app is real easy to do. If you have an Android or an iPhone, you can go directly to the Google Play Store or the App Store. And you can type in Good Seed Ministries and it will take you right to the app. But we've also created a real easy way for you to do it. And it's by sending a text message. So instead of me explaining it to you, let me show it to you by this video. Take a look. We'll be right back. So that's how you download the Good Seed Ministries app. It's real simple to do. Like I said, you can go to the Google Play Store or the App Store and you can type in Good Seed Ministries, download it there. Let me tell you why it's so important. We put this thing together because number one, you've got a powerful Bible that you can carry with you 24 hours a day. Matter of fact, all of your translations are there. It is a powerful Bible inside of the app. But you also have things like media. On the media, you can go back into all of our teachings, whether it's our Sunday services, our Thursdays gathering, my wife's CK Bone ministry, women's ministry on Tuesday nights, our devotionals that we're doing during the week, our special events, conferences, workshops, and seminars that we'll be hosting this week, this year, will actually be housed right there in the app. So you have complete access to it. So please download the Good Seed Ministries app. Now, another thing, that third thing I always told you, there's a third thing always, every show. One is subscribe to our YouTube page. That's Good Seed Church, Katy, Texas. Subscribe to our YouTube page and also go to our website, goodseed.church. Goodseed.church. So we kind of caught them up with everything. But tonight we're going to talk about parenting. Parenting is so important. Why? Because again, even during COVID, I think it has really got us together as parents, has brought families together during the time that we were closed and back in home again. Yeah. But we want to really just share with you all today biblical basis of raising our children. And I'm calling that being there for our children, because so many children want us just to be there for them. And so what does it mean to be there for your kids? Sometimes we think it's just going to work and paying bills and showing up to parent-teachers conferences, and we think that that's being there for our kids. But we're going to talk about, what does the Bible say about being there for our kids? So honey, just for a couple seconds here, let's talk about our own story, because I believe in our own story. I know I was raised, my dad left when I was 2 years old, so I didn't have a father in my life, and your story was kind of similar to mine. But I thank God for the fact that, again, I still had two bookends. I had a grandmother and a mother. My mother supplied the finances and things that I needed in my life. And then also, too, she was that person that I can talk to. But she was on one side of training me, but then my grandmother was on the other side. But let's talk about parenting for a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things that that just struck me when you said parenting, and how we think being there for our kids is sometimes just end as supplying, whatever resources our kids need. Like we buying clothes, I'm buying shoes, I'm paying tuition. That should be enough. But it's really not. Looking in hindsight, our children are 27 and 24. Yeah. And not one time did my children, now that they are grown and we empty nesting, not one time did they mention to me about a bill that I paid when they were growing up. Not one time did they mention, the new Nike shoes that we bought, or the Air Force Ones, or not one time did they mention anything that we purchased for them. But looking in hindsight, what they have mentioned is they mentioned when we took them to Disneyland. They mentioned when we were at the Little League game. They mentioned when my daughter was playing badminton and we came out and supported her. They mentioned those things that meant something to them. Right. And what we certainly realized is that it was not the money. It was the time. It was the time that we invested and put into our children. And being there for them really just meant the ministry of presence.
And that's so key. That's so key. Mm-hmm. I think that in my life, totally, we have 5 children, but with my 2 older sons as well, I have 2 older sons, which also have children. I mean, it's funny now, we're grandparents. Mm-hmm. We're talking to everybody today as grandparents. Yes. I have 6 grandkids, and it's like, wow, 6 grandkids. And to be able to say that about parenting, and I think you said something so key there that I think that those of you all who are watching will understand. What you heard my wife say is that as the kids got grown, here's something I want you to write somewhere, write this down somewhere. They will never talk about the nouns. They will always talk about the verbs. Remember, nouns are people, places, and things.
Yes.
Verbs is the action.
Yes.
So the kids, even though we do the nouns, what helps in the training of the children are the verbs. are the verbs. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to get right into the scriptures first and talk about that. But there are 3 M's that you need to do. There are 3 M's that we're going to talk about tonight, and all 3 of these M's are verbs. And in order to parent our children, the actions that we have to work on the most are the verbs, not the nouns.
Yes.
The nouns are part of the process. The verbs is part of the training.
Yes.
We train people not just by what we say, but what we do. And so long I remember hearing people say that do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. And that's not the way children translate. They translate, I do what I see you do.
Exactly. The verbs is what the children repeat. The verbs are what the training is. Think about it. Anytime you're doing any training, I want everybody to think about how you got on your job. It may have started with you reading a manual. It may have started with you reading a book, but you didn't catch on to that job until you start doing what's called hands-on training. And then what happened with hands-on training? Hands-on training builds something called consistency.
Yeah.
If I do anything consistent, then it becomes a part of habit. I can do it without even thinking about it. I can, I learned how to write. And it's so funny, we were watching our granddaughter, the youngest one today is beginning to trace her letters. So she's learning the letter A. And we learned and we watched her by video. She wanted to call today to show Papa and Gigi, I'm writing. And we're watching her sit there and write on one of those erasable boards, tracing capital A and small a.
Yeah.
And so guess what's happening? I saw her do that last night. I saw her doing that again with her mom today. But what I suggested to my daughter after I saw her do it, she has a little counting method. 1, 2, 3, 4. And she was counting as she was drawing. So what I told my daughter after I saw her doing that consistently a few times, I said, remove the book from her and give her a blank piece of paper and ask her to draw capital A. Because she has been doing it consistently with the aid of this little drawing device with the little dashes. We all remember with the kindergarten paper with the dashes. She had been doing it at least 100 times. Now remove that and give her a blank piece of paper and let's see how much she has retained in the training that you've been giving her. So we know consistency is there. We know verbs is important. The nouns sometimes we focus in on as parents, especially when we were young parents. I know when we started, we were a blended family.
Yeah, just let me say this. Parenting is not easy.
No.
It's not. And none of our children at birth came with a thesaurus or a dictionary.
Or an instruction manual.
Or an instruction manual. Not one.
Right.
And so we learned to parent the biblical way. And like you said, we had blended family. That was a huge challenge. How do you navigate blending the family together? Because there were children outside of the home. How do we blend that? And it was a huge challenge. And sometimes I know you probably thinking there's a lot of parents out there and who have a blended family, or not everybody is under the same roof. And we just want to share with you to just be encouraged. It doesn't, and I know you probably thinking, but I don't have custody of these children, or I'm parenting from a distance. The one thing that I can tell you that certainly worked for us, because we had to parent from a distance, is always keep your children in prayer.
Yes.
Because even if you are not the influential parent into that child's life, certainly God hears your prayers and He will answer them. He will protect your children. He will minister to them. He will find a way to get a message to them.
Yes.
One of the things that I think we did, even with blending, is that we tried to do some strategic things. and we're going to talk about that later on, is we tried to model. We tried to model what a Christian home looked like. We tried to model parenting and what parent choices look like, and we tried to model the things that we were trying to incorporate into our children. And then we consistently prayed. We prayed for each and every last one of our children, and that was one of the key factors, I think, with us trying to blend living in two separate households. And certainly, especially if you're trying to blend in two households and both of the parents ain't on the same page, it can be very challenging. However, I believe that prayer, it works. It changes all things. And even though they may have a rough start, prayer will certainly catch up with them and they'll have a smooth finish.
Yeah, so let's just pop up. Let's go to the word first. And I think we can keep that conversation going once we understand what God has given us. The Bible teaches us that children are a gift from God.
They are.
And so when you have a gift, the question is, you take care of that gift.
Yes.
And so let's talk about what the Bible tells us to do. In Proverbs chapter 22, verse number 6, and I'm showing it to you from the English Standard Version of the Bible. It says this: train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And I think there's some key words here that we need to talk about when we say the scripture says train up a child in the way he should go. There are a couple words in there, honey, I just want to bring out in this scripture. Mm-hmm. The first word I want to bring out, and I'm going to bring up that slide so we can see it, is the word teach. Teach. Mm-hmm. It is the most important word there. The word train means to teach. The word train means there's some work involved with that. A person will not become trained unless they have a trainer. A person who you want to train, I want you all to think about it from your job, from your life, that if someone wants to train you, they always assign you a trainer. But here's the thing I want you to think about. When you're being trained, you're being assigned a trainer. Here is the key. Is the trainer that you're looking to capable of training you in the right way? Because what a trainer does, his job is to teach you so that that becomes a habit. Remember we said that earlier. So let's look at the definition of the word train. So a person's training is teaching. That means to teach a person or an animal a particular skill or type of behavior through practice and instruction over a period of time. Let's look at that again. Teaching a person or animal a particular skill or type of behavior through practice and instruction over a period of time. So that word teach is so important because, again, as a parent, we have to understand that if we're supposed to train, then the kids are the ones being trained, then we are the trainer.
Yes, we are the trainer and we are the teacher. And we certainly should make sure that if we are training and we are teaching, that we have a lesson plan.
Yes.
Yes. How can you train and teach without having a lesson plan? And so one of the things that I think we were instrumental in doing is that we had a lesson plan that we trained and taught our children, and it was in accordance to the Word of God. At every age of their life, we had something on the table that we were planning to teach them.
Yes, all the time.
Exactly. And I remember when my daughter was hitting maturity, I started teaching her about being a female in maturity at age 8. I gave her a little bit at a time. I started at 8. I gave her a little more at 9. I gave her a little more at 10. I gave her a little more at 11. Gave her a little more at 12. And I kept going and escalating with it. What I'm trying to get you to see is that all the training that we did, it was intentional.
Yes.
We gave it to her according to age appropriateness. Like, when was it a good time to teach her how to make up her bed? When was it a good time to teach her how to begin to cook or prep in the kitchen? When was it a good time to teach our son how to clean up his room? When was a good time? And we did that consistently.
Yes.
And then after we taught them, we held them accountable. We can't hold them accountable for something that we didn't teach them. I hear a lot of parents say, go in and clean up your room. Did we teach them what it means to clean up their room?
Yeah, then we get mad.
And we
the
get
room
mad
is
when
not
the room.
clean.
Yeah, we
the
said
way
they
you
half
want.
did it.
Yeah, they have cleaned that room. They didn't clean the room up. So the question becomes, did you ever go in the room and teach them how you properly want the room clean?
Yes.
Because if you don't do that, remember, I'm the trainer as the parent, and they're the trainee.
Yes.
So if I don't take the time, because remember what we said is teach.
Yes.
So if I don't take the time to go in the room and begin to go section by section to show you, here's where you put your shoes, here's where you put your clothes. You know, I've seen kids, and as parents, remember we used to get upset about that early because we knew how hard it was, the sacrifice that we were making to be able to buy uniforms and clothes and to go in that closet to see those pants or that skirt or those blouses not being hung up properly was like you were just going mad because you know how much you paid at the uniform store.
Yes, but they don't understand.
They don't understand.
They don't understand money. The kids are the most financially independent people who exist on the planet because they don't buy nothing. They don't understand the value of nothing. And so we always try to teach our children the value of what they have or the value of something. But at the same time, by age appropriateness, we just made certain that they understood that whatever mom and dad did for them, it was a sacrifice. If we paying tuition, there's a sacrifice. So there's an expectation that you are to give it your best every day. And so we used to have a cute little thing we did with grades. They would get their grades when they come home. Mm-hmm. And we would always laugh at them, and we would always say a A is awesome. And a B was kind of like your best. But a C, we like, you just cruising. And a D means you just doing nothing. And then the F meant you finna see me in 20 minutes. That's kind of like how we parented our kids. And we told them anything shy of an A is room for growth.
Exactly.
And so that was some of the strategic.
And I just remember some of the things that you taught to them, like when you wanted to teach them about value. And I remember we used to do that thing called Parent for a Day.
Yes.
And we would set up a weekend and would say, okay, here's the money available for the weekend. This is for food, this is for entertainment and everything.
Yeah.
And for this weekend, you're the parent. You're going to decide what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I remember when they first started out, they wouldn't plan it. And we'd be gone for 2 hours and the envelope is empty. There's no money. And then they'd say the next day, well, we're ready to go somewhere. We can't go anywhere. We don't have any more money. You spent all the money in one day.
Yeah.
And they begin to see, even at a young age, the value of money, and to see that when they started getting their own little money for chores and stuff like that, they start becoming misers because they realized what they would spend $1.50 on an ice cream cone for. They realized they had this goal that they were trying to get. Yeah. And we say, hey, you want to go and use your money to get some ice cream? Nah, that's okay. I'm saving my money for something. And so I think the key to that you're saying, that as parents, when you draw out the plan for where you're trying to take your children, one of the key things that you are going to have to keep in your mind is exposure. Exposure. Everywhere we wanted our children to go, because both of us grew up on hard times.
Yes.
We know what it's like. We were raised in the inner city of Chicago.
Yeah.
And I was all the way in college before I realized that I was poor.
Yeah.
Because in college, when I took a sociology class, that's when I realized what the U.S. government standards was for poverty. Because to me, there was no way we could be poor because my grandmother was cooking enough food and giving away stuff and feeding people. How could poor people be poor if I'm always giving away stuff?
Yes.
But here's what we did. There were a lot of things we weren't exposed to. I remember I was a senior in high school when I began to branch out to understood what downtown was. Yeah. And to be able to leave out of that little square that I lived in, to be able to know that there was a whole world out there.
I was just sharing that with somebody over the phone I hadn't spoke to in years, and I shared with them. They asked me, what did I do raising my children? And I told them, although I would love to take the credit, I cannot. I said I parented my children God's way.
Yeah.
The product and the fruit of what you see have come from Him. There have been times when I wanted to pull my hair out, especially when they got to be teenagers at the same time, because they're 4 years apart. So they at one point they were both teenagers, and I said I pulled my hair out, but before I would respond to my children, I would always go and ask God how to respond. I would ask Him if they should go to that school dance, if they should go. And my kids, they laugh about it now. They say, well, Mama always says she going to have to ask God first.
Yeah, and they knew too. You always had that rule that you set up with them, is that we always needed 24 hours to make a decision. So if
no quick decisions.
Right. So if you pop up with something 5 minutes before and you knew it was within that 24-hour rule where we couldn't pray and think about that fact, you already knew it was a no. So we were teaching them that process. But you know, another thing that we haven't said as of yet that we want parents to know is that anytime you're training, that you're trying to take them in a point, there are times where correction is there. And we truly follow the Bible. Yes. We didn't spare the rod to spoil the child.
Yes.
I used to call it this, when they were little and they were 4 and 5, and we would tell them, don't do this, don't do that. And they would decide, I'm not listening to Mom, I'm listening to Dad. I remember I used to use the term pow pow. You want a pow pow?
Yes.
And they would be little, barely talking good. 4 and 5 years old. No, Daddy, I don't want pow pow. Well, you better start listening to Dad. It seems like you're not listening to me. And so I ended up taking the role as disciplinarian. And so it got to a point where we didn't let them play one against the other. Yeah. They knew that if you came to me and asked me something, my first response was, hey, did you talk to your mom about it? When they would go to you and ask you, you would say, hey, did you talk to your dad about it? So they knew they couldn't go around us to get stuff done.
But I think in this day and age, there's a lot of parents who, they discipline different. They say, I'm not going to spank my child, or I'm not going to, correct my children. I'm just going to correct them through having a conversation. And I just want to say, when we corrected our children, we always had a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
We never corrected our children or even disciplined them without a conversation first. That typically lasted about 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
And then after we had the conversation, then we reinforced it with their back end to make certain that they understood, the consequences for making those kind of decisions on what they wanted to do. Because we felt like that's what the Word of God says. You spare the rod, you spoil the child. But we felt that I can lay you across what we called our ottoman, was the mercy seat. And I can spank you until you know that is a definite no. It wasn't for everything. It was things that we felt would harm them, put them in danger, or they was just unruly and not respecting authority.
Out of character.
And I feel like this, if they don't respect you and you're in authority, when they get older, they won't respect the police either.
Exactly.
So we can either discipline them within structure in the home, and then talk to them beforehand on what they did wrong, discipline them, and then we talk to you afterwards and love on you so that you understand there are boundaries in this life. You can't just do anything. You can't do everything. You can't talk back. You can't. No. If you start teaching those principles early, it's very rare that your children find themselves in legal trouble.
Yes.
We'll put it that way.
And that was something, we were raised with that. I was raised with that point. With us, we called it the hearing test. When we said something and we trained you on something over and over again, and you seem to not get it, or you seem to do things you want to do on your own, then we got to give you a hearing test. We're going to hit you on your backside, and if you can hear us, raise your hand. And that's what we say, I can hear you. I can hear you. We want to make sure that those corrective measures are in place. Yeah. Because I remember as a kid, I see these young people here today, they have no fear for their parents. They have no fear for authority. They have no fear for the police. Let me tell you, I grew up under the officer friendly program. Yes. And let me tell you something. I was more friends with the police because I knew that when I got home, there was no joking there. I mean, I grew up under the regime that says, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. And when I tell you that they did not play any games, I was raised with a family that they loved you so much. And I remember my grandmother used to say to me all the time, I'm going to straighten you out in here, because when I straighten you out in this house, I'm doing it in love. If the police have to straighten you out, they're doing it because they just have to do it. But I want to make sure that when anything is done, corrective measures with you, it's being done in love. And so for parents, we want to say this to you as we get ready to move into these three things, these three verbs that you've got to get, is for when it comes to discipline, here's a rule we always have. We never discipline our children when we're angry.
Exactly.
You always take the time to cool off. I would always send them to their room so that they can sit and talk. And our rule was this: you weren't getting corrected or disciplined for everything you did wrong. Life is full of errors. The key with errors with us was we wanted them to learn the lesson from it. What is it that we learned?
We felt was a detriment to their development, because remember, we got a lesson plan.
Yes.
And the lesson plan was to get them all the way to adulthood. And if we felt you were showing some uncharacteristic behavior that could get you in trouble according to our lesson plan years, down the road, we felt that was certainly enough to discipline you for. And just as an example of lying, if you started lying to us, then you will start lying to teachers, you'll start lying, taking tests, you'll start cheating, you have no character, you have no integrity. So we would measure those things that we felt they were doing, and then if it's going to be a detriment to the lesson plan, then that's when we actually discipline them. This day and age, hon, I see so many children. I seen it once, and I just look. Kids is literally cussing their own parents out.
Oh yeah, it's happening,
I just stood there in horror in the store. My eyes, I started sweating. I said, what he said?
Well, I tell you what, it scares me, because every time I see a kid out of line, I think about myself.
Yeah. Ooh.
I said, boy, if I would have tried some of the things that these kids do today, yes, I would be blind, yes, and a quadriplegic.
If I fixed my mouth to say anything disrespectful to my mother, my lips would be on the back of my head.
I'd be talking out the back of my
Even
neck.
As an adult, I never would disrespect her in any way.
Exactly. As an adult, those things stay so far with us, yes, that I can't see myself sitting in my mother's presence and saying anything out of line. Yes. I was raised, yes, that the important things that we learned from manners was thank you, please, excuse me, yes ma'am, yes, no ma'am. We've taught those to our kids because we tell them manners will open up doors for you.
Absolutely.
That sometimes they don't get a chance to see your education. Sometimes people don't get a chance to see that. But just because you have manners and are respectful to other people other than yourselves can make a difference. So real quickly, what I want to do is, we talked about those things being verbs. And we talked about real quickly that with the plans we have, exposure is so important. So in that, we're going to add that. I'm going to bring exposure back. But I want to show you real quickly, there are three things we've got to do as parents. The three things we've got to do as trainers for our children. Here we go. The first thing you've got to do is you've got to be a good model. You got to be a good model. The problem is I see too many people that want to mentor, but you're not a good model. Because if you're a mentor, you're only going to model what you are. You can never mentor someone into something you're not. So before you talk about mentoring someone, whether that's your child, somebody else's child, or mentoring somebody or a peer on your job, you got to make sure that you're a good model. And Abraham Lincoln says there is but one way to train up a child in the way he should go, and that is to travel it yourself. You cannot take your children nowhere that you haven't been. So here's the thing. I can't model to my children what I want them to do if I'm doing the opposite of what I'm modeling. So a good example is worth 1,000 sermons. I want you to write that somewhere. A good example is worth 1,000 sermons. So what you do has more impact on your child than all the lectures that you will ever give. So honey, just real quickly about modeling. I think that is so important. I think as a married couple coming from two different backgrounds and coming together with a blended family, I think one of the powerful things that we did, because it makes us look over our marriage. We've been married almost 26 years now, guys. Yes. And I think one of the great things we did with modeling from day one is we taught our kids it is okay to disagree.
Yes.
Remember, we started off with where most people would call it an argument. We would call it a creative discussion. And when we say, hold on, guys, Mom and I need to have a creative discussion. And they would come and they would look at us and they'd say, and I remember Malachi being the oldest, would tell Glenn, oh, they've been arguing. Glenn says, no, that's not an argument. That's a creative discussion. They're trying to come up with an answer that's best for them that they can use. And so we would even do the same with them. I remember many times we walked through the house and we'd hear them talking loud. And all we would do is say, hey, I'm sure that's a creative discussion you guys are having upstairs, right? Because we don't argue in this house. We solve disagreements with creative discussions. Yes. We're sure that's what you guys doing, right? Oh, yeah, Dad, we're having a creative discussion. Okay, well, when you're done, come downstairs and share with us what you guys came up with.
One of the things that stand out to me when you talk about modeling is, I tell people all the time, I didn't come straight down from heaven.
No.
Heaven to the pulpit, by way of a sled. And then I left the pulpit and became a mother. I was a person. And, I tell people that all the time. And I wasn't perfect either.
Right.
So if you're looking at us thinking, oh, they just the perfect parents, they don't understand what I'm going through. We totally understand. When I hear the word modeling, it reminds me of when I was parenting my daughter. As a mother and a young mother in my early 20s, and I'm parenting my daughter, I remember one time I had went out to a nightclub. And I was sitting at the bar and I was drinking. And I had, my daughter was at somebody's house. They were watching her. And I thought to myself, I'm sitting here at this bar and I'm having a drink. Is that the kind of modeling that I want to do in front of my daughter?
Right. Because
I was not thinking about my daughter at the age she is now. I was thinking about when she gets older. Well, we think our kids, they don't pay attention to what we do, but they do.
Oh, yeah.
If they see you getting all dallied up and you come back and, and you look like who did it, what for, and they begin to pick up and figure out, oh, mama went partying. So when they get to be preteens, what do you think they want to do?
They see what they want to do, what they see.
They want to do what they saw you do. So now how are you going to talk to them about the church and being biblical and Christians and we don't do this and we don't do that, but they saw you do it. So that was the first, I did a series of things. The first thing I did was I stopped going to the nightclub. And then the second thing I did was I got serious about my relationship with the Father. And I started reading my Bible and I started going to church. And then the third thing that I did was I stopped drinking and I stopped smoking.
And it's so funny when you say
modeling,
that.
You know why? Because as my daughter didn't do those things. Mm-hmm. I look at her now, she may have went to a party here and there, but she's not that type of person. And it's probably because in the home, she didn't see that from me. She saw me at 3 a.m. laying on the floor praying. She saw me getting up, going to church and Bible study and reading my Bible. And that's what we modeled in front of her. But it took a decision. Remember, what did we just say? The parents. We're the teacher.
We're the trainer.
We got a lesson plan. Going back to your modeling. Mm-hmm. We have a lesson plan. If I'm teaching her something, but she see me doing the opposite of what I taught her, what do you think she's going to do?
And really, when you think about modeling and what you're saying, first of all, let me say this. We're not saying that a person can't have clean fun. We're not telling you that you can't get together with your friends. I don't want you to walk away with saying, don't hang with people that cuss and don't hang with people who don't do what you do. None of that. Listen, that's not what that is being said. What we're saying with this is that when you are training your children, you're training them up into a culture. A culture. The culture is what they're going to live. That when you say, I want my kids to turn out to be this or my kids to become that, when you're writing the lesson plan for your kids, remember what you're really writing is the culture that you want them to live.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if my culture was smoking cigarettes, right? And at the time, I'm not talking about taking, as we call it, a square here and there. I mean, I'm smoking 3 packs a day. So if I'm smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day in the household, what do you think she's going to experiment with when she gets to be a preteen?
Everything she saw in the house. That's what she's going to experiment with.
So that's what I'm saying. When I'm saying, we're not here to judge you. I'm saying I wrote a lesson plan of what I wanted my children to look like, to live like, to have, to experience. And I can't write a plan for them, but not model it for myself. Exactly. So the first thing I had to do was get self right and model what I wanted my children to be. I tell people all the time, write down what you want your children to become, right?
Right.
And I'm not talking about just career-wise. I'm talking about characteristic-wise. What do you want your children's character to look like? And then you become that.
And another thing that was so important to what you just said is that's exposure.
Yes.
Culture is determined based on what you are exposed to.
Yes.
And so we spend a lot of time raising our children to exposing them to things that we weren't.
Yes.
I remember we took our kids to opera. We grew up, I didn't know nothing about an opera. My wife didn't know anything about an opera. We're 2 individuals coming from the inner city. And I remember we took our kids to an opera where they're actually speaking Latin. It was a Latin opera with English subtitles showing up on the bottom of the screen. And the kids were reading the English subtitles. And guess what? Once we left, it wasn't like, oh, thanks for the good time, Mom and Dad. We would get together the next day and discuss the opera. What happened? What was the story?
I love the opera and I love classical music. The kids, whenever we had to go somewhere, they did not like riding in the car with me.
Nope.
They was like, oh gosh, can Dad drive us, please? Because they knew I was going to turn on classical music and I was going to drive about 35 miles an hour. That was my character. That's who I am. And so, but what happened was, with them knowing that, and that was who I am, it exposed my children to different genres of music.
Yes.
And so, again, what I used every moment as a parent, as a teaching moment, and exposing the kids to various different things to see whether or not they liked it or not. Like, you love baseball. You exposed our son to baseball. Our son wound up playing baseball. He was very good at it. But if we never exposed him to it, we would never know he was good at it.
I was the one who exposed them to sporting events. So yes. I took them to basketball games. And if they imagine this, I took them to hockey games. Yes. To get them to sit down and teach them the game of hockey. And just to be able to think about it, that's exposure. Now, did I do that because I wanted them to be a hockey player? No. We did that to let them know that this world is a big, wide world that you can be exposed to. And there are many things that you can have in that. So the first one is modeling. Modeling, that's the first M, the first verb that you do in trainer. The second one is management. Management. Talk about management, honey.
Good management is the ability to discern the uniqueness of a child and teach him or her accordingly. We are to train up a child in the way he should go. This may mean we will have to adapt our style depending on the child's temperament and wiring.
So that is really key that you just said, that we have to be able as a parent to discern the uniqueness of the child. We said that earlier, that a child doesn't come with a training manual. They don't come with a training manual. And they're different between male and female. They're different from child to child. Each person has their own personality and their own individuality. But as the trainer, we may have to adapt our style in our training of them. That means we can't just have a one-size-fit-all type thing for our kids. And if they don't adapt to our training method, then we call them the bad seed.
And it says we are to adapt our style depending on the child's temperament and wiring. And that is so true. Some children, they don't understand that as they're growing up. And we had the same confusion within our home. Because my daughter's temperament was different than my son's.
Yes.
So we had to parent them differently. Just like what this said. We had to manage them differently. My son, he was the type of person I can talk to him and he would just fall on the floor and scream and holler like I had just beat him, with a boot or a shoe or something. And because his temperament was always, he was open and ready to listen. Now, my daughter's temperament was different. She was strong-willed and personality-driven and leadership quality. And, she challenged everything you told her and every authoritative figure. She was wired differently. There was no way we could parent the two of them the same.
No.
And so, in her mind, as a child, she always thought there was some indifference there. Like, oh, I get it real bad, when I do this or I say that. But Glendon, he's different. And she didn't understand we had to parent them according to temperament. Glendon, temperament was he never had a problem with authoritative figures. My daughter's temperament, she always had problems with authoritative figures. And she's going to challenge authoritative figures. Which, how could, as a parent and as parents, we parent them the same?
Yep.
We could not.
And
so we had to adapt to their style.
And with being her father, being the only girl, I'm going to share with you guys some secrets. She was the one that from the time, she was the one that wanted to know why it wasn't this way and why I couldn't do it this way. So you already knew that when there was a corrective measure with her, there was going to be a debate first.
Yes.
Before you told her, listen, your point, you have the right. This is a democracy. You have the right to say what you want to say.
Yes.
But basically, listen, in the end, we make the decision of whether that's right or wrong.
Yes.
And so in the corrective measures with her, I realized with her, even when I had to correct her, I had to sit there and give her that hug. And so what I did with her, I basically just had to spoil her to the point that she had to understand that even though you were going to come to me with your debate and every time you bring it, you're going to lose, you just need to understand you still daddy's little spoiled little girl. You're the only girl I got. And I need to do this so that I can make sure you become the woman that we want you to become. And so it was smart on our part to understand that. She knew that when it came to the place with mom and there was no win there and mom says, you know what, I'm not going to keep debating you on this because nothing's going to change. Go see your daddy. And they both knew that when it was time to go see daddy, there's discipline that's going to come with it. And especially, and let me tell you, this is funny now today, that we know about the colors for COVID. But let me tell you something. My kids knew the colors of pressure. They already knew that years ago because I used baseball to tell them where they were in the discipline scale. And I would say, hey, you did that? That's strike one. Hey, you did that? That's strike two. And when it got to strike three, that means you were on high level alert, you on red. And they already knew, Dad, I'm going to see Dad. I'm on 2. That means when he see me, I'm on 3. So I already know what's going to happen with that. And so that is the key to understanding the management principle, is that you've got to understand that they're all wired differently. And you've got to be willing to adapt your style as a trainer, because the goal is to make sure that they get it. To make sure at the end they are trained. That's the key. Now, I wanted to just show this one real quickly. We had a couple of these hanging in our home. And these were, and I'm going to hold it up a little bit so you can kind of see what it looks like. This was our mission, vision, core value. I did a sermon series probably, what was that, baby? Maybe 12, 13 years ago.
A long time ago.
And we, through the series, this sermon series, I took everyone through that your family needs to have mission, vision, and core values to what you're going to do to create that culture that you want for your family. So we ended up getting ours laminated, put on wood, and they were designed, and we had 2 of them hanging throughout our house, one upstairs and one downstairs. And whenever there was time for discipline, we always would let you know, what did you violate on here that caused you to get to this point where discipline is about to be used on you. And they would say, well, I violated this in the mission, or I violated this in the vision, or I violated this core value. Let me just read a couple of these for you. Vision. We will explore some of the greatest places in the world and affect families across the globe. We are prosperous because we live by the word of God. We will take personal responsibility to ensure each member of our family understands and achieves their God-given purpose in life. We will take advantage and care of every opportunity God gives us, and we won't squander anything. We will keep God first in all that we do. Let's look at these core values real quick. And I'm going to say this because, let me see, we have maybe about 9 minutes left, and we still got one more to go. But the core values we put in place was honesty, respect, trustworthy, discipline, truth, responsibility, self-control, love, effort, and patience. And our scriptures is Proverbs 12, 1 through 28, the 12th chapter of Proverbs we looked at. And our motto is in service to the King. And so every time discipline came up, one of these plaques was taken off the wall, brought downstairs. We would have a discussion, and based on what you have done wrong that needs to be corrected, which one of these did you violate? We would discuss that. And you know the good part about this wasn't something that my wife and I sat down and wrote. We did this together as a family. We actually wrote this out and came up with this together as a family and agreed that this would be the mission, vision, and core value for our family.
Yeah, Glenda was about 7 and my daughter was like 11
when we wrote this.
And I still see them now living by the very principles and core values that we taught them. And what we taught them basically, it just comes through the Word of God about, you can train a child all day long to become successful, go to college, have a career.
Yes.
But if you don't teach them some of the core principles of integrity and respect and self-control and discipline, you can walk them in the door of success, but their character won't keep them there. And we understood that. And so we started teaching them early on. When we talk about have a lesson plan for your children,
yes,
what we're talking about is have a plan not just for their careers or what you want or you see them becoming in life, but have a plan on the characteristics that you see that you would like to see in your child.
Yes.
And then model those and then manage those. And then the next thing
our last one for tonight is memories. Memories. Now I heard you talk about that early. You mentioned that early when you said they're not going to remember the shoes we bought. They're not going to remember the outfits and things. But what brings them back, remember that scripture says that when he is old, he will not turn away from it. Why is it? Because memories is this. One of our major goals in training is to create memories. Parents should create memories. Why? Because memories are more important than things. Note that the verse says, when he is old, he will not depart. This implies that the child retains some memories of his early experiences and embraces them later in life. Memories will always be greater than things. You might want to write that down. Make sure, Lord, help me as a parent to build memories more than things, because what brings the training back to your remembrance, what keeps it from departing, are the memories, not the things. The things will disappear. So again, we have learned that memories are so important. I know in my life, in your life, my grandmother's in my life every day. I can hear her. I can see memories of things that I was taught and trained. I can see those same things from my mom each and every day. You begin to grow. As you begin to grow, you can see the characteristics of the training that you receive being modeled in your own life every day.
And sometimes, too, we have to be balanced in memories as well. And I believe as a parent, sometimes you can do too much.
Yes.
You can overdo it. It's just like a parent giving a child the keys to the car. If you overexpose or
Yes.
you overdo it, I always would pray about age appropriateness and when should I do this or when
Yes.
should we do that. And God would always let me know, or I would have that feeling like, okay, I think it's okay if we expose the kids to this at this age appropriateness. Because if it's overexposed, and a lot of parents I see do that, they create a whole slew of memories because they try to be their kid's friend.
And sometimes, here's the key to that. Memories without training becomes a nightmare.
Yes.
Say
that one more time.
You might want to write that down. Memories without training becomes a nightmare. Because here's what's happening. The kid gets what's called memory overload.
Yes.
I've got so many memories going through my head that I cannot remember. So what do I mean when I say memories without training? What I'm saying is that every memory should be tied to a training.
Yes.
Every memory should be tied to a training. Let me just give you one. My kids today, and I mean all of the kids today, remember that when it comes to Thanksgiving, the first thing on their mind is they're looking for somewhere to go serve. Because we taught them when they were little kids that all through their lives we would go and serve somewhere first early on Thanksgiving morning, and then we would eat in the afternoon. And what I would train them is to let them know that when you go and serve on Thanksgiving, it makes your meal taste better. And
the
so
same thing
all
with
memories.
Christmas. Our Christmas, we taught our children that Jesus is truly the reason for the season. We did not. You can ask any of my children. We did not put Christmas gifts under the tree. We served on Christmas. Just recently, since our children are grown and they have the fundamentals of what Christmas is about, we have a gift exchange, like a grab bag,
right,
and each one pick one. But prior to that, when they were small and they were not grown, we did not load the tree up with gifts because we felt that was teaching them, number one, that they can do everything for 11 months out of the year, and then on the 12th month, we're going to reward them for it. Number two, we understood that Christmas was not about the gifts. It was about the giver, which was Jesus Christ. That's another principle that we wanted to teach our children. And then I know you're thinking, well, y'all just taking the whole fun out of parenting. No, let me tell you what we did. We served on every Christmas, and then we had a nice dinner. And the next day, the day after Christmas, we would take the children to the mall, give them envelopes with money in it, and then we would let them shop and buy whatever they wanted.
And
then they learned the value of money, because if you ain't got but $100 in that envelope, and you go get that Tonka truck, and it's $22. No, if it's $22, you already know how much money you gonna have left. You gonna have $78 left.
And we were also teaching
them when the envelope empty, it's over.
But we were also teaching them good finance as well, because a lot of parents are mad the day after Christmas because they've spent all of their money. But here's what happens: the day after Christmas, the prices of everything drop. So the kids would always say, "No, I don't want nothing before Christmas because I can get more for my money the day after Christmas." And so we would take them to malls, and they'd walk out with 3 or 4 or 5 bags of stuff, because they're waiting for the after Christmas sale to do it.
Yes.
And then what gets me...
Well, wait a minute. When they got older, let me tell you how we really paired that up. When they got older, we started giving them like incentives for their grades.
Yes.
So if they had A's, those were $25. B's, those were, I think, $15. C's was $5. We broke it down. So we added this money together, and that's what they had for Christmas.
Yes.
We'll say, we're going to take a look at your grades. And then your grades is going to determine if you get anything extra. So we were teaching them the fundamental principles of earning.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody, me and my husband, and their child was getting straight F's. And on Christmas, they was jumping for joy because they had about 40 gifts under the tree.
Yeah. And that's, to me, I think that's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
You're rewarding someone
For failing.
for bad behavior or bad training.
Yes,
For not moving according to your culture. I'm going to reward you for that. You know, in our days, you might have got the PlayStation 5. You would have got the box with some books on the inside. No, some books on the inside. Say, with your math book in there and your reading book, and telling you, you know what, this is what you need to get for Christmas. You need to get down with your business. Now, listen, we thank you all so much for joining us today, for this being there for your children. Again, if you want to email us, you want to reach out to us, we're at the end of the Proverbs teaching. So this is our last Bible class from Proverbs. Again, if you anything you heard from us that you want from us, if you want a copy of this mission, vision, core value, and some steps to how you can do it for you and your family, just email me, Pastor Glenn at goodseed.church, Pastor Glenn with 2 N's. I'll send you a copy of ours and send you some instructions to how to do that. But again, your children are so important to you. And I hope tonight you learn from us. What you learn from us is we're not perfect. We thank God for what he has done in our children today. We thank God for our grandchildren. And so we feel that, like the Bible is saying, it's being fulfilled, where it says our grandkids will be the jewels in our crown. And we're just helping them in the next level because we want them to do even greater things. And so we thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to hit the share button. Hit that share button. We're helping friends, family, co-workers, everybody we know understand who they are and whose they are.
And also, we are so proud of all of our children.
Yes.
I look at every last one of them, even the ones that were not in our household, are doing such a fantastic job. Listen, we're telling you from our own personal experiences about how we were there for our children and the fruit of it. Our son currently, right now, he has a nice corporate position. He's a graduate from Valparaiso University, and he has his bachelor's degree. My daughter, she is a graduate of Valparaiso University, and she also is a graduate of Point Loma Nazarene University with her master's degree. And our oldest son, he just graduated from college this year with his bachelor's degree and doing fantastic things. And our middle son, he is doing phenomenally. He also went to Quincy University, and he's doing a phenomenal job in corporate with another company. And he just got promoted. He, just bought his own home. We couldn't be more proud.
Yes.
And let me tell you what all of our kids, what they have in common. Some may not have been in the household with us, and some may have, and some may not. But let me tell you what they all have as a common denominator. They were prayed over and prayed for.
And they have had Marlon. And still today in our counseling with them, as they're all adults and they're all raising kids, except for Glendon. And Glendon is helping with his nieces and nephews, but still, they're still reaching back and always talking about what we were taught. And so, again, don't lose hope. Continue to pray, because, again, God can do U-turns.
Be encouraged.
Be encouraged. So, again, thank you so much. We love you.
We love you.
There's nothing you can do about it. And we will see you on Sunday. We finish our last week of our series, Wise Living. We'll see you on Sunday. God bless you. Have a great, great day. And remember, children are a gift from God. That's why we got to be there. See you soon.